Brilliant.
You are now live.
We're live. Thank you, Aisha. Welcome everybody to our FBS chat. Today we have the wonderful Anne Rambo, all the way from clear and cool New York. I know you're normally in Florida, so thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to be curious, Anne, really, because I like to know as little as possible about the people I'm talking to. It just makes me remain curious. So, and I always fascinated to know how you came across the solution-focused approach when it first came to your notice.
Well, my early training, because I'm really old, my early training was with Harry Galushian and Harlene Anderson in collaborative family therapy. I was working in Texas, and I grew up in Texas, so I apologize in advance for my Texas accent, which makes it even harder to understand me, I know. And then I moved to Florida to teach at Nova Southeastern University. And one of my colleagues there, Lee Schiltz, worked with Insoo Kimberg on working on what works. And so I got to know Insoo. She came down, she worked with the schools, she worked with us, and she worked in the public schools. And I got interested through her in working in the public schools. She and Lee worked on classroom management, and I'm sure that you all know that the Working on What Works program has now been used worldwide and very effective with classroom management. I kind of sneaked in a different way. I got interested in working with just where the fault lines were in the district, so to speak. You know, where kids were falling through the cracks, and how my graduate interns, because I have graduate interns that need hours, they need experience, how they could come in and shore up those places. In Broward County, where I live in Florida, it's the nation's 6th largest school district.
Wow.
It's a very large, very urban, very diverse school district, and is typical of such districts. I imagine there's never enough money. Never ever enough money for everything you need to do. So they didn't have enough money, and I had students who needed experience who were like free labor. And I got friendly with some of the people in the district, and we started talking about how can we come in and be there where you don't have enough people, where you really need help. And that's how it all started.
And did you actually meet Insoo?
Oh yeah. Yeah, she worked closely with us at Nova, and just was such a wonderful person, and was so inspiring to work with. And we have a lot of videos of her working with our students.
Yeah,
it's interesting. So, frequently at conferences, I run into the brief people who I have great respect for. Chris Isaacson and the people working for, and they worked almost exclusively with Steve. Steve. And I think very often Steve was in London while Insoo was down with us in Florida. She usually came by herself. And it's interesting to see, I mean, we all love solution-focused therapy, but it's interesting to see the differences. Apparently, Steve, I certainly have met Steve DeShazer too, but apparently he spent a lot more time talking about Wittgenstein and talking about theory and talking about, and Insoo didn't. She was like, okay, so how are we going to get in these schools? And what are we going to do? Because this is unfair, what's happening. And she was like more in the trenches and very much about social justice. So it's kind of interesting. Everybody has their own solution-focused therapy. I think because we were mostly trained by Insoo, we are more in that direction. We can talk about theory too, but we don't as much.
Yeah. And we've seen a wonderful video of Insoo in front of a class in Holland, where she was doing it. So for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what WOW is, I know working on what works, but how does it work in practice?
We've done a little bit of it. Since Lee retired, we've done a little bit of it in classrooms ourselves. We're doing that now with the virtual classrooms because of the COVID-19 situation. A lot of the schools in Florida have been virtual. What you do is you focus on what's working. A lot of it is really work with teachers, because teaching, if you think about it, is a lot like parenting. That nobody ever tells you you're doing a good job. Your 6-year-old doesn't say, it's so good that you're making me go to bed on time because I really appreciate this in 20 years. No, that doesn't happen. You don't get any positive reinforcement. And you don't as a teacher either. And teachers have all those people over them who are usually just telling them when something is going wrong too. So they become sort of positive starved. And then they know that they're supposed to be focusing on what the children are doing that's positive, but that's kind of hard to do when you feel so depleted.
Yeah.
So I think part of what Insoo, because Lee's wife, Margaret, was a teacher. I think she realized that. And part of what she was trying to do was bring in that positives to the teachers. So a lot of what you do is notice what the teachers are doing that's working. Because they might often notice that. So, Johnny was horrendous all day and threw the desk 3 times. But there was a 10-minute period when he was actually interested. And that's when you were drawing pictures on the board. And that was so great that you did that. So that I think is very helpful. And then she also engaged the students to do, through scaling questions, to take their own responsibility. What kind of day is the class having now? How could you raise it up better? So she treated them more like autonomous people. Yeah. It's a wonderful program. That's not most of what I do with my interns. And we do a little bit of it now, but we work more directly with kids who are in special situations. With the Promise program, we worked with at-risk kids. Right. Let me talk a little bit about the Promise program and how that got started.
Yeah, please do.
So after Insoo got me really interested, I was working for several years with graduate interns in very low-income elementary schools, just offering extra support services to families. And I didn't know that the district was that aware of what we were doing. It said that they were permitting it, but apparently they heard from the principals that we did something that was good. Meanwhile, the school district was getting sued because of how many kids were being arrested at school and how many kids were being suspended.
Right.
They were being sued by the National NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and also by the state chapter, and also by individual parents. Because if you look at the pattern of schools suspensions, it's very racially discriminatory. Also gender discriminatory. You're a lot more likely to get suspended if you're a young man of color than if you are a white little girl who's the teacher knows your parents.
Right.
Yeah. That's just the way it is. And it's difficult to prove in an individual situation. That's why it had been languishing for a while, because to make it work in the courts, you would have to prove that Susie threw the eraser on the same time on the same day as Johnny, and Johnny got suspended and she didn't. And that's difficult to prove. Yeah. But if you look at the pattern, if you look at who gets suspended on it, you can see it's like 80-90% are young men of color. So something's happening.
Was it as high as that, Anne? 80 to 90%? Wow.
That's probably an exaggeration. You got exaggerate. It was probably more like 70%, but it's a lot. Yeah. So we got a new superintendent who said, look, I'm going to quit stonewalling and saying, prove it. We know we have a problem. We're going to try to do something different. And he set up a deal with the police and with the legal aid and with the state attorney's office that they wouldn't prosecute medium range offenses. I mean, you go in with a gun or something, or you send somebody to the hospital, you can still get arrested. But what they call mutual fighting, the two kids fighting in the schoolyard, or vandalism or something like that, instead of arresting you, instead of prosecuting, they're going to send you to this special program, which is called Promise. And that stands for, it was a committee. So it stands for Preventing Recidivism Through Opportunities, Mentoring, Interventions, Support, and Education.
Wow.
Like what the committee name is, right? But basically what it meant was you're not getting arrested. You have to go to you have to go to one school that's set aside for between 3 to 10 days. And we're going to talk to you about coping skills and anger management and the usual kinds of things that guidance counselors talk to you about. And you're going to see a graduate intern from this family therapy program. And they wrote that in before they even talked to us. And then they called me and said, hey, you're in, and we want your interns to come, and we want you to see every single kid who gets suspended in the school district to do an assessment, like from middle school on up. And I said, that's a huge time commitment, and I don't think I can do that. But they taught me it. They twisted my arm. And it actually has worked out wonderful. And what we've been doing is seeing them and doing essentially a solution-focused assessment. We only see them once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times if they're there a while, but mostly just once or twice. And we ask them, we don't talk about the problem, at least to begin with. We just ask them, so what would you like to have happen? In 5 years, where do you want to be in 10 years? Where are you going in your life? How can we help you with that? And then we help the child construct a plan. This is what I think this is where I want to go, and this is what I think would help. And then we help the child present that plan. I'm saying child, but we're talking 13, 15, 17-year-olds. They help them present that plan to their parents and to their home school.
Right.
And we think, I mean, we never know. I don't know how much of it is not getting arrested. I don't know how much of it is they also give them lessons on coping skills and anger management, but they were doing that anyway. And, you know, I never know how well that works, but it helps. And then they have us. Something's working because the recidivism rate has dropped. From it used to be recidivism is defined as for these purposes if you get suspended again in the same school year. And that used to be about 50%. And that's not even counting the ones who got arrested. And since the program is down to 8%, which is a big drop. And the rate of schoolhouse arrest has dropped dramatically. To the point where like a model for the state because we have so few arrests. So we're really excited about the program. We think it works really well.
That's fantastic.
It's something you have to keep fighting for because there's a lot of political stuff, you know, because every so often somebody will say, well, you should lock all these kids up because they're doing bad things. And you have to explain why that doesn't work. Fortunately, law enforcement has been very supportive because they know that in the first place, it'll take 2 or 3 years before they ever even get to court. And then the charges will probably be dismissed. But also, if they do get locked up, it doesn't help. So they've actually been very supportive of the program, which is helpful.
So in terms of, because it sounds, so if a child, let's say they have a mutual fight in the school.
Right. I love that term, by the way, mutual fight.
Yeah.
It sounds like they prearranged it, you know.
So generally, did the school always involve law enforcement, or would they refer to you even if a policeman wasn't called out? Do you see what I mean? Are they always, is law enforcement always called in those circumstances?
Since the Promise program, they don't call law enforcement. And if they do, law enforcement won't take the call. They'll say, send into the Promise program. The only time when law enforcement would get involved is if the parents refuse the Promise program because the parents have a right to say, I don't want to do this. But usually if you say, okay, then we're calling the police, and the parents are like, okay, tell me about that program again.
What was that program again?
What was that program again? Doesn't sound so bad, maybe.
And it's, I mean, it sounds like really difficult because it sounds like, obviously, it's either we follow it up through the arrest procedure, or you attend this program, and obviously, out of the 2 lesser evils would be to attend the program, but it's still not voluntary in that sense. So how do you get over that kind of, I've been sent here, I don't really want to be here, but you know, you get a lot of resistance in that way? Or
well, that's where I think that's the solution focused therapy is so helpful, because yes, the teens come in and they're angry that they had to do this. They have to be, it's a detention facility, so they are searched. Particularly with our problems that we've had in the U.S. with school shootings, they are searched head to toe. They got to take off their shoes, all of that. They have to go through a metal detector. They get lectured. We're giving you a second chance here, but if you screw up again, we're calling the cops. You know, So they have had the whole lecture. So by the time they are sent to see us, they are furious. And non-responsive. And I go collect them in the classrooms, and I hear them coming down the hall behind me, muttering to themselves, saying, I'm not talking to you. They can't make me talk. They can make me do this, but they can't make me talk. Right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. And then they come in, and I sit them down with one of our interns. And then 20 minutes later, I'll walk, because it's all in a setting where I can observe everything, and I can do like live supervision, and I can pop in if we are having a difficulty. But most of the time, we come back 20 minutes later, and they are talking heads off.
I was going to say, so when you're walking down the corridor with them, and they say that, you must be thinking, let's see, 20 minutes later, let's see what happens.
Right. And I think what it is because we're not talking about the problem. I mean, we start off saying, which also helps, we don't work for the school district. We work for the university, and we're here to hear your side of the story. Well, that already opens it up a little bit. And then we say, I see you got suspended for something. Let's not talk about that. Not right now. Let's talk about, what are you interested in? What are you good at? What would you, where do you see yourself? And we have some fun questions. If 10 years from now you get a phone call and you won an award, what would that award be for? We got that one from Matthew Seligman, who works a lot with teens. They love that question, and they get really interested in that. And talking about the positives in their life, talking about their life stories, that's so developmentally appropriate for them, and nobody ever asked them that. And they're really excited to talk about that. Yeah. And then eventually we circle back around to, the fight or the vandalism or whatever. But by that time, we have a whole different kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're on their side. We're helping them meet their goals. And that's a very different kind of thing.
And so they're with you between 3 and 10 days, did you say, Anne?
They're with the program between 3 and 10 days. There's so many of them that we often don't get to see them more than 1 hour, or maybe 2 hours. So we're talking very brief therapy. They love seeing us. They always say, come take me again when I come back to class, but we may not be able to depending on the numbers, but we always see them at least once.
And the aim is to reintegrate them back to or are you seeing him in their schools anyway, or are they sent? Because in the UK, you would be taken out of your regular school, and
they're out of their home school for the special program, and then they get pitched back in.
Cool.
Right, but when they get pitched back into their home school, it's part of the program that they have to look at the people at the school officials have to look at our recommendations.
Right. Okay.
And call us and talk to about it, and the parents have to call us and talk to about it too. So that changes the conversation. At least a little bit. We'll get the phone call from the school. I didn't know that Johnny was interested in chess.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's interesting that he wants to be in the chess club. We didn't know this about him. So you hope to kind of change their story about the team.
Yeah.
I like to say we're dealing with different pieces of the puzzle. We don't get to see everybody all together, but we like to think systemically.
Yeah.
And so we're not just working with the youth. We're also working with the principal, the guidance counselor, the parent. Everybody comes into contact to kind of shift the story a little bit.
Yeah. And it's brilliant if that young person has given themselves a goal or a target that someone notices when they're trying to do it. It's so much better.
Right. And it's so amazing how often schools and even parents don't know what exciting dreams young people have for themselves and what they might already be working on.
Wow.
They just see the problems or when people are getting tripped up.
Yeah. And so the program currently, you say, is still happening, but it's happening virtually?
No, that was an interesting thing that happened this fall. I mean, technically it would still be happening if anybody was getting suspended, but when everything went virtual, we have had basically no suspensions because the kinds of things that they would get suspended for, they're not going to get suspended for if they're not in school and learning virtually. And actually, a lot of our teens have done better with virtual learning because you don't get into fights, you don't get irritated by the teachers and other authority figures. You can just pursue your own goals, your own time. If you're smoking a little weed out on the back porch and it's okay with your parents, nobody at school is suspending you for something like marijuana. So, a lot of problems just sort of evaporated. Wow. So our original thought was that we would just take the fall off. Like, this program, it's like my day job. My dean is always, it's like not my day job is what I mean. My dean is always like, this takes up so much time. Why are you doing this? And I'm doing it because I love it. But I thought, well, we'll do other stuff this fall. And then when I called the school where they house the program, also has another program for elementary school age children who have fairly severe disabilities. They're on the autism spectrum, or they have other kinds of behavioral social challenges. And we have at times helped out there too, but just minimally. When I called the school to say, okay, we're not coming back this fall because nobody's getting suspended, the administrator started to cry. That got my attention. I was like, what's happening with this? And she said, we were counting on you guys because we're having so much trouble. And I thought, well, okay, so what we're now in a situation where it's another group of kids that are falling through the cracks.
All right.
And it was the younger kids, and particularly the kids with learning difficulties, who really were not adapting to virtual learning. And the teachers were incredibly frustrated. So that's what we've been doing. Now we have been going into the virtual classrooms and doing stuff, some of the working on what works, some of the helping children set their own goals. And of course, because we're working with younger kids, we have the puppets, we do the skits, we do all kinds of fun stuff just to make it more entertaining too. And that's helped me to think theoretically, what is it that I'm doing in the school district, and to see what's different and what's the same. And one thing I have noticed that's similar about the teenagers and then the younger kids with the learning difficulties is everybody wants them not to be angry.
Yeah.
All the adults want them not to be angry, but actually anger is a really good fuel. And anger is an appropriate response. Most of the teenagers we see are very angry, but they have good reason to be angry. Yeah. Things have not been fair for them. They're in an unfair context. And they may even come in and say, well, my goal is to learn to handle my anger. Yeah. And we always say, but anger is a good thing. We don't understand that. And that also, I think, changes our relationship with the teenagers, that we're able to see the anger as it's just an emotion like any other emotion. And it gives you a lot of energy and you can do stuff with it. Yeah. And it's interesting that we have found that same theme, even though it's very different, working with much younger children, dealing with a different set of problems, trying to adapt to virtual. It's the same thing. They're really angry about this. They're really angry they're not getting to see their teachers, except as a little blob on the screen. They're really angry that they have to stay in the house all the time. And that's okay. That's okay to feel angry. And then you can do interesting things with that energy.
Yeah. Because like you say, it's a natural emotion. We all get it. And some anger can drive us to do positive things. If we're upset about something, maybe we can do something about it in a positive way.
Yeah, so that's something I've been kind of playing with theoretically, is that I think if we're really going to do solution-focused work, we have to be careful not to accept the goals that are maybe social control goals, or maybe like the goals of the administration or whatever, that we want children to be more docile or to not have negative feelings. And we're not really working with what our clients want.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's very seductive. It's very easy to get pulled into, let us work with you on how you can be less angry and more compliant. But that's not really in the best interest of your clients if you think about it.
Yeah. True. Wow. So,
well, I've been talking way too much, and I apologize.
No, you haven't.
I should let you ask some more questions. I get excited about this.
I was just wondering what difference do you think it makes to the young people when they're really surprised that I don't really know why you were suspended? Because they must assume that she wants to sort of, I don't know, indoctrinate me or change me as a person. So it must make a big difference to them. What for that young person not to be said, right, you were suspended for fighting. That's wrong. Blah blah blah.
Right.
That different. What I know, they look surprised, but how is it helping them move forward, do you think?
Well, can I do like a case example?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think it's always easier, if you're talking about real people.
We love case examples.
Yeah.
Okay. This is one of my favorites because I just love how much this young woman was able to use her very righteous anger as a positive fuel. This young lady had grown up in foster care. She'd been removed from her home at a fairly early age with physical abuse. It had never worked out for her to get adopted. So she was staying in the foster care system, and she always felt kind of different from other kids. And she'd gotten into this situation with another young woman her own age. First, it was a fight over a boy, which it always seems to be. But then both of them dumped the guy. So that was history, but they were still mad at each other. And they continued fighting with each other, and they got into physical fights. And she had been suspended several times. And if she got suspended one more time, she wasn't going to have the promise option anymore. She was just going to get expelled from school and sent to like some kind of juvenile detention camp. I mean, things were not good for her. And she had not followed through on coming to promise the first couple of times, but she finally came, and we got to see her. And she sat down and said, kind of a low energy voice, I know I need anger management. I've been in all these anger management groups. I need help with my anger. And we started talking to her. That was one where I actually sat in on because she came in so angry. It is a little intimidating to the intern, right? And so I sat in on it and I said to her, but it seems like your anger might have been very useful to you. Tell us about that. And then she got interested and she started talking about people don't respect me because I grew up in foster care. And I need for people to respect me. And if I back down, if I don't hit this girl, if I don't show that I'm tough, people will not respect me, and I can't tolerate that. I need respect. So we hear that. That's important. Feeling respected, that is really important for you. That is something that you want in your life. And we just spent a while, and she said, you're not going to try to take away my anger? I said, no, we hear that about the respect, and we talked about that for a while. And eventually we asked her that good solution-focused question, are there ever times when you have felt respected? And she said, because actually the fighting wasn't working that well for that. And she mentioned that the school nurse always made her feel respected. She had been to the school nurse several times to get the bruises and scrapes and so on treated. And she always felt respected. And that she thought that people respected the school nurse because the school nurse wore a white lab coat.
Right. And
she said, people who wear white lab coats, people with those kinds of jobs, people always respect them. So we started talking about, is that something that you have ever considered? Well, I don't really want to go to college. Well, something else that we do that maybe other solution-focused therapists don't do, I don't know, is we do have a smorgasbord of resources. Because we know that kids don't necessarily know. So we have pamphlets, we pull stuff out. So we pulled out a bunch of pamphlets of credentials you can get while you're still in high school. And one of them was being an x-ray technician, and she really liked that.
Okay.
Well, making a long story short, what we ended up doing was concocting essentially a revenge fantasy with her. She and the girl that she always fought with both worked at Burger King, which is like a fast food place. They both worked at the same Burger King, and they did all kinds of nasty sabotage on each other there, which I'm sure made it a terrible place to eat, to try to get each other in trouble, right? So in her fantasy, she went ahead and got the x-ray technician credential, and she got a job, and she was making some money, and she was wearing a white coat, and so she was able to buy a car. This is a future fantasy, right? She would buy a car. And she would drive back to that Burger King where she was confident her nemesis would still be working because she had already dropped out of school. So she would go through the window and order French fries and pretend that she didn't remember the other girl's name. She'd be like, oh, don't I know you from somewhere? Did I know you in high school? Susie? Was it Susie? Sally? Maybe it was Sal. And she would have the car and she would have the white coat. And she loved thinking about that.
Yeah.
I remember that in detail. That was like a powerful dream for her. So that's been about a year, and she hasn't been in any trouble since, and she's graduating with her credential. Probably 5 years from now, it may not be so important for her to actually drive back through that Burger King. But maybe it will be. And okay if it is. And that gave her some powerful fuel to think about changing her life.
That's amazing. I love that story.
That's how it makes a difference. I just was so admiring of her initiative. And I could see why it was so important for her to hold on to that anger, because otherwise she was going to accept that she was just another statistic.
Yeah. And also, I mean, you're right. We get a lot of young people referred for anger, but anger is an outward sign of something that, like in this girl's case, it was feeling disrespected. With others, it's unfairness. With others, and it's lovely the way you, and like we would probably do as well. So, are there times when you do feel that things are done fairly or that you are respected? Because unfortunately, that story sounds all too familiar with, especially a lot of the gangs at the moment, where fear and respect are kind of, they think they're the same thing, but they're actually quite different. To get respect, I need to be feared, and it's changing that mindset about violence. It's, they'll be afraid of you while you're in their presence, but that respect won't be there when you're gone. That kind of, and respect is, that's what a wonderful story.
I think often young people know that. They know that what they're doing is not working. They just haven't been able to identify what might work. You know, or the pieces of the exam. You know, it's easy to overlook that. And that's part of why you need that solution-focused therapist to help you see the times when it did work another way.
Yeah. And getting her to that future place and getting her imagining, because imagining her going into the Burger King but being a success.
Yeah.
What a wonderful way to visualize that. Excellent. Yeah. So she's doing really well.
She's doing well, yeah. And most of our kids are doing well, and that makes you happy to feel like you're making a difference. Yeah.
And I know you mentioned earlier that she'd been referred to the Promise program several times, but hadn't taken it up.
Right. Right. Her parents were not pushing her to. Well, she was in foster care, so there wasn't really anybody to push her to go. So she was like, "No, I don't want to do that. Just put me in juvenile detention for a couple of days. It's shorter." So so we hadn't had the opportunity to work with her before. So that's why she was in kind of a difficult situation where she wasn't going to get that many more chances.
Okay. So who's?
I think we've got zero time. Yeah, somebody's saying people have good reasons for their behavior, right? Yeah, absolutely. People always have reasons for what they do. And that takes me back, I think, to my early training in collaborative work with Harry and Harleen, and to the basic sorts of systemic understandings that I have when people come to solution focus from different backgrounds. But I come from that background, so I always remember that all behavior makes sense in context.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't understand the person's behavior, or it just seems self-defeating or stupid, then that means that you have not taken the time to understand the context. And that's something I say to my interns over and over.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got a lovely set of interns that, so they must love the type of work that they're doing. What sort of?
They are great. They really do.
Yeah,
they really are. I mean, they work hard and they try hard to get it. It's frustrating sometimes, you know, that it's been frustrating this fall, days when the equipment just didn't work and nobody could hear anybody. Yeah. But it's good that we're there experiencing the frustration with the kids, because otherwise they wouldn't have anybody to empathize with them.
Yeah.
And I have a story about that. Just again about anger. We had a young man, and one of the things we were talking about was just checking in. How are you feeling? And where do you feel? I have one intern who's kind of into the mindfulness stuff, so he always wants to ask, where do you feel what you're feeling in your body? And this one student who's 9 years old and has a whole bunch of diagnoses that I won't bore you with, but he was saying he feels angry, and he feels angry all over, and so angry, in fact, that it is shooting out of his fingertips.
Wow.
And I asked him, so how is that helping you? And he said, right away, when I get that angry, when it shoots out of my fingertips, it keeps me from being scared. It keeps me from being scared that my daddy's going to leave. And we talked a little bit more with him about that privately, and turned out that his mom and dad were having bad fights at night that they didn't realize he could overhear. And then he's coming to school the next day, and he's sleeping in class, and he's about to flunk out of his virtual class because it's noon. He's still in his pajamas, and he's not functioning. So we were able in that situation to think what might be going on, and to put in a phone call to his parents and offer them some marital therapy, which they gratefully took. And who knows if that relationship will make it or not, but at least they're not having loud fights anymore. And now he's back up to grade level and doing well. I was talking about the other day. He said he still has some anger in his toes. Keeps it there in case you might need it. It's a good place for it. Yeah. Because you can wiggle your feet around as much as you want. You don't get in trouble for that. So toes are a good place to store some of that anger.
Yeah, because you can do it under the desk and no one would.
Yeah, nobody will know. Right? Anger out there for the toes, and it's pretty.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing because he still has that control.
Yeah,
as well, doesn't he?
Yeah,
and that's a big part of him dealing with what's happening.
Right. And I can see his point that if he stopped being angry, it just might get overwhelming. Being so afraid and feeling so helpless, laying there in the dark, hearing this and not knowing if somebody's going to get hurt. That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
That's incredible work, Anne.
Yeah. Well, the kids are great because they just really want somebody to talk to them. I mean, I kind of feel a little bit like a charlatan, acting like we're doing fancy stuff, because I really feel like 99% of it is just that kids want somebody to talk to,
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have so few people to talk to because mostly people lecture them.
Yeah.
Talk at them instead.
So
And
Mark is asking Joe, sorry. So would this promise program work in community work, like without the detention characteristics and police referrals? Any ideas if and how this could be implemented and work?
Oh,
out in the community, yes.
Yeah, I actually think it might work easier. I mean, for us, the fact that this is happening one step ahead of arrest is actually something, as we were talking about, that we kind of have to overcome. Because by the time we see the teens, they are mandated and they have been threatened and their parents have been threatened. Your kid will be locked up, and the kids have been threatened a lot. I mean, I don't mean in a bad way, but they would have had police officers come and say to them, you could be arrested for what you did, and do you know how bad jail is, and you need to stop this. I mean, what you would say. So they're not in a good mood. So we have that to overcome. And I can imagine that it might actually be a lot easier if you were coming at an earlier stage in the process, and coming to talk with kids about, hey, here's somebody here that you could talk to about where you're going with your life. On the other side of that is, of course, we know that sometimes in some communities there's a lot of stigma about mental health services. And one of the things I do notice that is maybe a help, I mean, there's always a plus and a minus about our mandated context, is it allows teens to really take advantage of therapy without there being any social stigma. Sometimes they'll say to me, this was great. Please come and get me again tomorrow. I really want to talk to my therapist tomorrow. And then I'll come get them the next day, and they'll go through a little thing. I have to talk to, they're making me talk to that therapist again. And it's a show for their peers, and then as soon as they're in the hall, they're like, great, thank you for coming to get me. Right? So you do have that kind of working for you.
And they skip down the corridor all the way down to
the therapist, right? But for their peers, they went through the act of, I have to do this or they're going to arrest me, So,
yeah.
Right. Even though they don't have to come more than once. But so I think that would be something you'd have to work with in the communities. How could you come in a non-threatening way? How could you come in a way that doesn't look like, because if you could just come and say, hey, I'm a therapist, do some of you need therapy? That might not sell. But I think teenagers in particular are really interested in talking to anybody who can talk about their future, because they're scared about their future. So if you came in and said, even just with some concrete resources, hey, if you come meet with us, we can have some information about college scholarships or about jobs, how to get jobs, then you could kind of go from there. And then the parents would be behind you too. Yeah.
And it's brilliant because you're curious about how their anger is useful, and that must be a question that they hardly ever hear. It must be like, you've got to fix this, you've got to change this.
Yeah, I think adults are very threatened by the anger of children, which is interesting. I mean, it because we do spend a lot of time trying to control them, and I think we almost have an unquestioned assumption that they're not allowed to be angry. And that they should be appreciative for everything we're doing for them. But some of them have had a raw deal.
Yeah.
And sometimes even like with this virtual thing, even if the adults are doing all they can, and we won't get into that the fools in Washington are not doing all they could, and that there's a reason why we have such a high rate and all that. But I mean, locally, the teachers are trying really hard. But it's still, I would be angry too if I was 8 years old. And I really loved, and school was a sanctuary for me. And it was where I got my breakfast and my lunch, and those were my two big meals of the day. It was free breakfast and free lunch, and it's where I saw my friends. And I had a teacher I loved, and it was a safe place for me. And now I don't have that. And I'm home, like we've seen some of the kids that they're home and they're babysitting, where they're 3 or 4 younger siblings. And they're trying to balance, the school district gives them a laptop, but they're trying to balance their laptop on the kitchen table and do a bunch of other stuff at once. And I'd be angry too, because it feels like something got taken away. I had a place that was for me, and now I don't have that anymore. I just have these people on the screen talking to me, telling me how to do stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are the schools fully back yet, Anne, in Florida? Or is
We
it?
reopened over the objections of the teachers union. We reopened partially Friday. By this Friday, we'll be back up with it's an option. You can the instruction is still online, but you can come sit in the classroom with the teacher and do it online in the classroom, or you can do it from home.
All right.
Many of the parents don't want to send their children back because they're scared.
Yeah.
And since Friday, we've had 40 new cases.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is Wednesday. Maybe that's just the first jump, but if we continue to have 40 every 3 days, then they're probably going to have to close it again. And while there have been some really sad cases with children who get this multi-systemic thing, I mean, it's possible that small children can get it badly, but that apparently is fairly rare. Mostly children don't get it, but children can be carriers. So it's putting the teachers in a very dangerous situation, which they're not very happy about. And while the children have a choice, or rather the parents have a choice, you can go back or not, the teachers don't have a choice.
Yeah.
The teachers were told you have to report. So you can imagine what that we were talking today, me and the interns, but we need to broaden our services to figure out some kind of tactful way to say, we're going to have a support group for teachers.
Now more than ever.
Yeah. It's hard because teachers don't like to admit they need help, but this is really hard for them.
So do you have any new projects or extension of your project on the horizon? And it's only us, so you can tell us. No one's listening.
I would like to get into more direct support of teachers, because I think, it's like you have to bring in the parents and involve the parents, and you have to provide services for the parents, which we do a lot of that case management and resource linkage for parents. I think that's always, and that's what INSU used to say, that's a missing link in all the work that we do in schools, is we don't work directly with teachers, and it's difficult because you don't want to be tactless, and you certainly don't want to say, well, we think you need therapy. But if you can provide some kind of, one of the things we have been doing for the teachers is just noticing every single day what they do that's working, and giving a written report, not to them but to their principal. So their principal will praise them for that and put it in their files or whatever, and the teachers have really appreciated that. Because they do great stuff. They do really creative stuff, and it often gets overlooked. And maybe it works for, the other thing is it doesn't work all the time. We do something really creative, it worked for 10 minutes in your 6-hour day. So you forgot about it, but at least we remembered it and brought it to your supervisor's attention. And that was a good thing. I'd love to see that expand somehow, because I think if you work in a positive, depleted atmosphere, that filters down to the kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then, larger systems in schools too, a lot of the issues that our teenagers are dealing with do have to do with systemic oppression, racial issues, class issues, income issues. So we have to work on those at a larger level as well. We can. There's so many levels to this kind of systemic thing. It can keep you busy forever, and I don't have any answers. It's just that I think it's important for us as therapists to consider all the multiple levels.
Yeah, and what a wonderful way to not get the teachers on board, but at least someone's appreciating some of the positive things that I'm doing, even if I'm not noticing it myself.
Right. Right. I think in schools, it's easy to develop an atmosphere where everybody's saying that they're trying to focus on the positive, but nobody's actually hearing any positives. And so it becomes like pouring from an empty pitcher. You don't have anything to give because you haven't gotten anything yourself.
And often, often we do praise. Often there is praise, but I don't. If it's rather than just a well done, if it's what you've actually noticed them doing, and they can actually realize that it's praise that has some meaning to it for them, because they know this is. Yeah, he's right. I did do that for 10 minutes. Often in schools, I think we spend a lot more of our conversations on telling young people what they've done wrong, but we don't spend as much time telling them what they did right or what they're doing right.
But you raise such an important point that often when we do praise, we say something like "good job," or "good boy," or "good girl," or "that's great," and that is kind of empty. Insoo used to talk about evidence-based complimenting, and my friends at Brief do a wonderful job of talking about that. And I do think that is so much more effective. Just to say what you notice. Oh, wow, I noticed that you're taking care of your 3 younger siblings and you kept your baby sister from falling off the bed just now. And you also answered the test on time. How were you able to do that? That's much, you feel seen and you feel validated and somebody paid attention to you. And that's much more reinforcing than just the kind of the pat on the head, which can easily come across as, particularly with teens, can particularly come across as sort of condescending.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. So, have you written a book yet, Anne, about your wonderful Promise program? When's that out?
I haven't had time to write the book. I've written some book chapters. We have a chapter in global humanitarian family therapy, which I like a lot, and then with Laurie Charles, and she writes about working with larger systems all over the world. And we got to talk about our work with the school district. You don't think about that in the same terms as hurricane relief, but it is a big system. And that is something that I would like to see more solution-focused therapists and family therapists in general do, is work in larger systems. We really conceptualize our client as the school district, which doesn't mean we don't care about these individual kids, but that's why we're looking for the fault lines for the school district as a system is trying really, really hard, but they don't have enough resources. And where are the fault lines? Where are the kids falling through the cracks? Where do they need shoring up? What are the exceptions? What can we build on? Just like you with an individual human client, I think thinking in terms of larger systems clients is helpful too.
Yeah. Brilliant. And because I used to work in a school with young people, and it's often only, you may see them a couple of years later and they'll say, oh, thank you for all your support. But at the time, you didn't think the conversations you were having were having much effect. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I know what you mean. I think that's why I was mentioning earlier. I think that's why teaching is like parenting that way. You really need some support because you're very seldom going to get the speech in the moment that says, you've really changed my life and this was really helpful. And maybe if you're lucky 10 years from now, you'll see, I really made a difference in that child's life. But on a daily basis, children are preoccupied with their own lives. They're not gonna take the time to notice everything you did right. And the people around you, teachers are sort of like parents that way too, that I heard you intervening for that parent before we ever came on. Everybody dumps on them. Right. Your kid does something bad at school, you get the phone call. Right. And the implication is you must have done something wrong. You have screwed up and you need to take charge of the situation. So you get a lot of responsibility and at the same time, a lot of things you can't control. Yes, I think people in that situation definitely need support.
Gil has just written, Joe, are you going to ask Anne what her 5 favorite questions?
Well, thanks for giving me a heads up, Gil, so I can be thinking about my favorite questions.
We wouldn't know what we're doing without Gil, I'll tell you that.
It's up to you, Anne, but I know Gil's going to write them down and steal them, so it's up to you.
Yeah, but so am I.
I have stolen many good questions from Gil along the way, so that would only be fair. One that I know we all use, but I really like it, especially with the teens who are coming in not even wanting to be there. If you were to look back a year from now and you were to say this conversation today was actually really helpful, what would have to happen to make that true? Because it really does put a different kind of situation about that. Does kind of alter the relationship. So I like those relationship altering questions. I mentioned that one that I stole from Matthew Seligman, and I like that so much that I not only use it with teenagers, but I use it to interview prospective students for the program. So he often uses 10 years. I like to double the kid's age. So like if they're 14, I say, so imagine you're 28, because that also gives them the picture you have a lot more time ahead of you. Imagine you're 28 and you get a phone call and you've just won a huge award, and it's an award you really wanted to win. What is it for?
Mm.
That's an interesting question. You get such interesting answers. And I'll even ask that of prospective students, and not to take the people who say, I don't understand this question. Is there a list of awards to choose from? Not to take those people. You want the people who have a little imagination, and they say, well, because I invented this whole new model that's, informed by social, but it's good with kids because it gets their imagination going. And sometimes you hear about things that you do not know about. I remember one young man, I asked this question, and he said, my artwork would be in galleries. And we had no idea he was interested in art, nor did anybody else. His parents, his school, nobody knew that he had like a notebook full of drawings. Wow. But that kind of opened an interesting door to us.
Yeah.
So I like that question too. 5 questions. That's a lot, gosh, because usually then you want to take the conversation in the direction where the person wants to take it. Something about maybe how is what you're doing now useful to you? So it gets back to the anger thing. How is your anger useful to you? How is fighting useful to you? So that you're not automatically assuming. Because usually what people are doing is a solution to a problem. It's a solution that has at least partially worked, or they wouldn't keep doing it. So I think it's important to respect that and to figure out how it's been useful to them so far.
Yeah.
And then the corollary to that, of course, is what would you like to be different? What would you like to keep, and what would you like to have different?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't she brilliant?
One more, Anne. Go on.
Well, now I'm totally running dry. Gosh, well, of course, you always want to do. The scaling questions are nice if you're creative with them. With younger kids, rather than the number line kind of thing, we often use a ladder. And where are you on a ladder? A ladder is great because you could be staying in one place for a while, or you can take a step back down so you don't lose your balance. So it's kind of more creative that way. Or you can do, sometimes I'll do the floor to the ceiling. And then you can get all kinds of places you could be floating in between. Yeah. But I do think it's a nice visualization, and then it helps you ask about, so what would get you like floating a little bit higher, or one more rung up the ladder. You can ask about small change. Yeah.
Well, I hope you're happy, Gil. You got your 5 questions.
Great question.
Yeah. So,
they're brilliant questions.
Yeah, I love them. And did you say you used puppets earlier, Anne? Did you say?
Oh, yeah, with the younger kids, because we were trying to think, how can we use like you said, everything has a upside as well as a downside. So the kids are looking at it like this. You got people in boxes, right? And they're used to like 3-dimensional people, and they're kids. They don't like the boxes. Like, well, I'm only seeing this person's head. Right? Is this real? And we thought, this has some opportunities for creativity. I am not a puppeteer. I'm not great with puppets, but with these little boxes, you can hold up a puppet and you look like the greatest marionette, the greatest puppet person in the world, because you can't see anything except the puppet, right? Yeah. So we've used puppets, we've used giant posters, we've used funny hats, we've used anything we could, and it makes it more visually interesting.
Yeah,
like you say, an asset. Yeah, we've had a lot of fun with it. You always have to have fun with it.
Well, you are one amazing lady.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
one amazing lady. Honestly,
yeah. We're have you ever used music, Anne?
With the teens, we have used music, particularly rap songs, because really, if you ask the kid to write a poem, that sounds hokey, like who wants to do that, right? But if you ask him to write a rap, that sounds cool. And it's really just a poem with a beat to it, right? You don't even have to sing it, right? Yeah. I can't sing that well, so I don't usually burst into song. But anybody can rap. I mean, not everybody can't rap well. I don't mean to. It's a great skill, but everybody can sort of rap because you're just talking to a beat, and it's a great way to get kids to talk about their feelings, write about their feelings, and it can lead to open mic night. So we've used that a lot with teens. We've used that some with the younger kids to bring in songs, and again, just to make things more interesting.
Yeah. Wow. So it's are some of these things that you use, they just kind of you're in a session and a moment, a flash of brilliance comes, you say, I'm going to use this. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean, lots of times you're making it up as you go along. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm lucky to be a teacher because we go in to do what we do in the schools at 9:30 in the morning, and we meet at 9. And we meet again at 11:30 after it's over. So I can feed off my interns and they feed off each other, and we come up with great ideas. So I think it helps the team.
Do you know this young man?
I do not. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Guy. What are you doing back there?
Can't hear you, Guy. He's talking away. Oh, we can't hear him.
Sorry, he was on mute.
Yeah.
Oh, I was on mute. Were we on mute?
We were on mute. Sorry.
Okay, I was saying, hello, Anne.
Hey, so nice to see you.
Are we live on Facebook? And I believe we are.
Yeah.
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 Well, it's lovely to see you.
Nice to see you.
Guy just popped in. He does that. He pops in for
I
a
just popped in
coffee.
to say hello. Yeah.
I still miss miss Bath so much.
Nice, wasn't it? That was great.
It was great. That was such a wonderful conference. It really was.
Fun.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
All the best. Okay.
Yeah, Guy's really kindly helped. We got a new worker starting with us who's a musician. He plays drums, guitar,
cool.
and Guy came down, and I think they should have been talking about using music in some of the sessions with the young kids and that.
Yeah.
So that would be a really interesting. And
music, art, drama, whatever you got, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Wicked. Yeah. So, Anne, what's next? I know Aisha's asked you already. The book's on its way. Is it?
I don't know. There may be more book chapters for a while. I do have other books out there, but they're more about teaching people how to do family therapy and system. It's more written for my interns. And I did write a book for parents on how to advocate for their kids in schools.
You have my email address, Anne. You have my email address. Feel free to send me some of those documents so I can proofread them for you.
Okay. You got it.
You know.
Okay.
But,
I'm a very honest thief.
Oh. So are we out of time? Is that what we're doing?
And that's I think that's really important because parents do often worry so much about these meetings and how they're going to do.
Parents don't realize how many rights they have. In the United States, they have a tremendous amount of legal rights, but the school's not going to advertise that.
No.
They're not going to come in and say, well, actually, you can pretty much ask us for anything you want because then we get backed up in the courts. They're not going to open the conversation that way. Right? So you need a little help. You need to give them a little help and support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you going to remain within the school community, or are you going to spread your wonderful work further afield? Or is it schools is your passion?
At this point, schools is my passion. There's a lot. It would be very hard to leave the district. You saw what happened when I tried to take the semester off. They wrote me back in, right? Because you get attached to the kids and to the system and to the people that are working so hard in the system for very little reward.
Yeah. Brilliant. And I don't know what else to say. It's been fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure. Yeah. And you're right. I forgot all about being live and being self-conscious.
Totally. I don't know who wrote this, but famous group of people here. They're clearly referring to Anne and Guy.
Yes.
Thank you for the lessons. And Guy does not need to social distance, I see. We just got more measures here. Well, he was standing a little bit further behind me, but it's the trick of the laptop, you see, can make him look a little bit closer. But Guy has spent the afternoon with us, with our colleague Matt, talking about solution focus and music.
Oh, nice.
So for one of
I look forward to seeing that talk about solution focused music. I would love to hear that.
Well, I will definitely have Guy back on. He was actually the first person we ever interviewed on FBS Chat.
Wow.
So we'll have Guy back on with Matt so they can kind of talk about their work so other people can kind of take it on board if they wish to. But it's been absolutely great having you on here. I was super excited to be in contact with you. I'm communicating with Anne Rambo, and it's just absolutely brilliant. I'm a huge fan. And
I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Can you just stay there for just a couple of minutes, Anne, so we can have a quick chat afterwards? Don't touch anything. Just stay there for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Don't touch.
You saw me hovering over that Leave studio.
Yep,
okay,
I saw
I'm not doing that.
And any
cross, Anne.
Yeah, and Jeff Chang, bless, is saying, thanks. This was great. Glad I popped in. Thank you for popping in, Jeff. You are amazing as well. So Thursday, tomorrow night, we are doing a SF sing-along. So if you are a solution-focused practitioner, you might have received an invite, and you'll be receiving an invite tonight.
Oh, fun.
Jeff, so will you. So tomorrow night, we're having a bit of an SF sing-along. I can't disclose any more information other than that.
It's a secret.
It's secret. It's a secret thing at the moment. But I hope to see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. UK time. And I will let you guys know who our next guest is, Paul Hanton on Monday.
Oh, exciting.
The lovely Paul Hanton. Anne, you're amazing. Let's say a quick goodbye to everybody, and we'll see you guys on
Bye-bye.
Monday.
Thank you, Anne. You're brilliant.
Thank you.